counterparts. So the start point, really fairly simple, cycle 1, cycle 2, week 1 to 6. Your next point is insert the competition games and any expected pre-season games. So pretty simple. This team plays on Saturdays, and you can see now where the notes come in. So that's an internal game. These are pre-season friendlies, and this now is the season actually starting. So the first stage of your planning would be, let's put the games in. If you play on a Sunday, obviously they go in on a Sunday. If you play Wednesday and Saturday, probably not in Australia. But if you do, then there's some real considerations that we've got to look at there. Easy enough? Then mark the days on which training sessions for that age group will take place. Now there are some considerations here of rest days and things like that, but potentially in a club environment, and I've come from club environments, obviously in the past, I'm not just magicked into W League and TV. I've been in clubs before where there were issues around first team gets Tuesday and Thursday just because they've always had Tuesday and Thursday. It doesn't matter what day they play. And if you're in the women's team, you get a quarter of a pitch down the bottom with 2 cars to give you lights. So it's not always easy to decide when you're going to, it might just be given to you. But just put a T on the nights you train. So this team, they play on Saturdays, they train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. This is just an example of 3. If you only train twice, it might just be Tuesday, Thursday. You put in what you want. If you train 4, put in 4, you know. I think obviously it's fairly easy to see that if Dave Suckling turned up and you just had this, he said, there you go, Dave. He still hasn't got a clue of what he's training. He knows he's training Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, but he still hasn't got a clue what he's actually taking in that session. So, how do we add that? Oh, sorry, why 6 weeks, first of all? Again, some fancy language. Mesocycles. Mesocycles are usually structured to emphasise a certain goal or component of fitness and can last anything between 2 weeks and 12 weeks. So, it doesn't have to be 6 weeks. FFA have chosen 6 weeks because it fits in really well with the conditioning programme, football conditioning that Raymond Verheijen's developed. It's also a reasonable time to see some improvement. So I chose 6 weeks. It could be less, it could be more. Football's a difficult sport to periodise training for. Periodisation originally came from like your Olympic sports, where you might have 1 or 2 events a year where you need to peak for. And that's quite easy to build load, decrease load, and then we're at our peak performance level. We're basically peaking every Saturday. Or if you're in Europe playing in Champions League, you're peaking Tuesday, Saturday, Thursday, Sunday. So it's a little bit harder, but FFA have chosen 6 weeks and it works quite well. So, coming back to this, at the moment we've only got training sessions in there. We now go back to our team model to really start getting some detail in what's in each of those T's. We talk about the 4 main moments in the team model. For the purpose of this, for game training purposes, we're only going to talk about 3 moments. So we're going to combine the 2 transitions. So you've got ball possession, so that's us in possession of the ball. BPO, ball possession opponent, that's other team with the ball. And then transition is, we're going to lump the 2 together for the purposes of this. And just going back to our points of reference again and our team model, we're talking about being proactive and being possession based. So we think that this is a good split. So we want to be possession based. We want to possess the ball. So it makes sense to do more of your training with the ball. BPO 33%, transition 16%. It doesn't have to be exactly that. You know, you're not going to be strung up if you've got 40, 40, 20. But we think from the way that we want to play, this makes sense. As an obvious opposite to that, Greece won the Euros a few years ago playing a very different playing style, where it was very much counter-attack based. So I could imagine that their split for training would have been very different. They'd have spent a lot more time in BPO and a lot more time in transition and less time here. But that's because that was their playing model, that was their team model, that was their points of reference. Our points of reference are these, so this makes sense. All agree? So, that then means every 6 sessions would be made up of 3 BP sessions, 2 BPO sessions, 1 transition session. Just going off those figures. Which now starts to look like this. So we're now changing our T's into BPs, BPO, BP, BPO, transition. So there's 6 sessions. 1, 2, 3 BPs, 2 BPOs, 1 transition. Happy with that? Makes sense? So, flicking back to Dave Suckling again, he's got a bit more of an idea now. He's not got a session plan yet, he's not got exactly what we're doing, but he now knows at least, well, the focus of this is going to be us in possession. Do they have to be this way? No. And we'll look at that a little bit more later. So, team model, another point of reference. This is now how we dig down a bit further and provide a bit more detail for Dave Suckling. So, if the session is about BP, ball possession, us in possession, some themes for training. Could be playing out from the back, could be midfield play, could be attacking third. It's a BPO, disturbing and pressing, defender and recapturing the ball, and transition. So this is all in your team model. So now allocate those themes to your plan. So it was just BP. Now, we've put some more detail in. So playing out from the back, that's one of our themes in possession. Midfield play, that's one of our themes in possession. Disturbing pressing, BPO. Attacking, BP. Defending and recapturing, BPO. Transitioning. Still with us? Enough for Dave Suckling yet? Well, it's getting better for him. But maybe it's not quite there. So now, the actual session, what is he taking? He knows it's playing out from the back, but what about playing out from the back? What have you done already? Have you worked on centre-back splitting, full-backs getting high and wide? If you've done that already, we don't really want to do it again. Have you worked on the 6 dropping in between? Don't know. And certainly Dave Suckling doesn't know. So, one possibility, model session 1. I haven't stolen it and I haven't got my copy. in your national curriculum. So Dave Suckling may know that if he comes in here, partway through, he comes in at week 3, he's playing out from the back and he's doing model session 2. So he gets his national curriculum, he has a look, model session 2. He's got exactly what session he's doing. And he knows next week he's doing the attacking session 2. Defending and recapturing model session 2. So suddenly he knows what he's doing. So cycle 2. So cycle 1, we chopped off cycle 2 because just to give us a bit more room to fit this in. So what happens in cycle 2? In the next cycle, repeat the model sessions using the step-up options outlined in the model sessions. So each model session has progressions. You all know progressions. You make the space, change the space that they're working in, increase numbers, so you can repeat the model session using the step-up options. But only if the players are ready. And this now, this is you as a coach. This is you. This is the hard bit. Anyone can follow, you know, if you're the TD and you put these plans up, this is what you're doing, Dave Suckling. Anybody can do that. Anyone can read the plan and say, yeah, I know what I'm doing. You've got a nice diagram, I know there's 4v4 in there, and I know, yeah. But this is the real science of coaching for me. This is you. Well, are these players ready to go on? Have they got everything I wanted out of that session? If they have, next week we're going to step it up. If they didn't, then I'm not going to step it up. Maybe they didn't get it at all, so I need to step back. You might come in partway through that cycle, and it's model session 2. You do model session 2 and they can't get it. So don't go to model session 3, which is a step up. You maybe go back to model session 1. But that's you. That's you observing, that's you. He's got it, he hasn't got it. There's only one that hasn't got it. I'll talk to him separately. They all haven't got it. Then let's do it again. So only if the players are ready. Can it be done another way? Of course. And just before I do that, this is something that is a bit of a bugbear for me, that there's a lot of negativity about the national curriculum. And for me, the biggest negativity is there's only one way. You're telling us there's only one way to do things. You're telling us there's only one way to play. And people rightly suggest, well, we're only going to produce one type of player. We'll only be able to play one system. We'll only be able to, we'll only. Rubbish. I'm not saying there's only one way. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother standing here and trying to talk you through this. I'd just give it you. I said, well, there you go, do that. Every club do this. But we're not doing that. We're trying to give you the tools to use, and then you develop it. So 4-3-3. People say, well, what happens when you play a team that plays 4-4-2? I said, well, we'll know how to do that. My back four will know what to do when there's only 2 strikers there. Because it's not that different to teams playing with a false 9. It's not that different to having a 10 pushing up really high. What happens if you play against the back 3? Well, how different is that to having a 6 drop in and the 2 fullbacks play high? There's not only one way. So you can change things, an alternative. Playing out and about model session 1, attacking model session 1. Going into session 2, going into session 3. So that's just done differently. You organise it how you want. You might spend a whole week playing out and about and never touch it again. You choose. Design the cycle and season plan to suit your team. So if your team really struggles to play out from the back, so earlier in the year my team really struggled to play out from the back, so I spent more time doing that. Once we got that, then I never touched it again. Or I maybe touched it every 3 or 4 weeks just as a freshener. So, design the cycle and season plan to suit your team. What does your team need? So I said I'd touch on the other phases. Performance phase is almost identical to planning the game training. Pre-season is exactly the same as you introducing your team to your team model. So you would do all different stages, playing out in the back, midfield, attacking third. But once the season starts, cycle 2 on, your choice of main moment and theme for each session is based on a specific football problem. So you play on Saturday, what was your football problem? We struggled with combinations in wide areas, so we could get the ball to our 7 and 11, but then we struggled to actually create anything from there. That's your football problem. So next week, deal with that football problem. In the game training phase, you don't do that. So this year, it's real obvious for me. EAP, NTC. I don't change week to week what I'm coaching. I've got my year plan and we are going through the whole element of our team model. Melbourne Victory Women, different. So if we struggle with something on Saturday, then that next week I will be coaching that. Or even alternatively, if we're playing a team the next week that plays a different way, I will be working on that. Game training? No. Deliver the whole team model throughout your 4 years. Performance phase related to your specific football problems. And another thing, in certain sessions the training game is simultaneously a tactical and a fitness intention. So anyone who's seen my W League trainings at the moment, Wednesday night is our football conditioning. So that's my conditioning session, that's where we are developing their fitness. But I'm doing it specific to the way that we play. So if we're going to press high with a front 3, my football conditioning will be based around that. And that's the performance phase. Just I guess to put this together a little bit, an interesting character, Steve McLaren, England manager, had quite high workloads and he literally wasn't growing. He was small anyway, but he literally wasn't growing. And he went through 2 or 3 years at Feyenoord, I think it was, where he grew like a centimetre every year. And then they looked at his training load and they said, well, people his age have always been growing more and he should be growing more than he is. So they reduced his workload. The following year he grew 9 centimetres. Now, you may argue, well, he just went through his growth spurt and stats can always be a little bit confusing. But just be careful around the growth spurt. If you see that a kid's growing a lot, then maybe we just need to look at workload. But general rule of thumb, 3 sessions per week, 75 to 90 minutes, and 1 game is a safe workload. Skill up phase, so a little bit younger, 2 to 3 sessions per week is 60 to 75 plus a game. If you're doing 3 sessions, drop them to 60 minutes instead of 75. And this kind of goes back to what I guess I hinted at a little bit earlier. Your first team are coached one way. Your under 9s are not mini versions of your first team. So you can't just replicate what you do with the first team with your under 9s, or your 13s, or your 15s. They're not mini adults, they're kids. And they have different issues, growth issues, social issues, so they need to be dealt with differently. And in this case, who says you have to train for 90 minutes? If the first team trained for 90 minutes, maybe it's linked to the fact they play a 90-minute game. The last time I saw an under 12 play a 90-minute game was probably when I was under 12 playing in England. And yes, we played on a full-size pitch with a size 5'4". And did it help me develop? No, did it help? Helped me kick a ball a long way because the pitch was bloody massive. But it didn't help my first touch because I didn't need a first touch because I had 30 metres of space every time I received it. Because every other kid was too knackered to come and close me down. I was great back then, I hope. So weekly planning, and this is the bit I mentioned earlier that maybe is difficult for you in a club situation, but can you rest the players the day before and day after a game? So if you train 3 times per week with a game on Saturday, train Monday, Tuesday and Thursday. In an ideal world. If you can't do it because there's no space on your club ground, then but bear it in mind. Don't do a massive session. If you play on a Sunday and you have to train on a Monday, and I've had that before, don't do a massive session on the Monday. Just again, a little bit of common sense. Discovery phase, just let them play. A little bit different again. Warm-up, which is also a passing practice. So it's not just running up and down to warm up, and it's involving the ball. Then positioning games, which should then take that into slightly more game-related position. Then game training, which is normally fully opposed and in the right part of the pitch and things like that. Then a training game, which is basically where you do your observation. So less coaching there, you'll be doing your coaching in here. But again, you'll see more of that if you've done C, B, A, and even pro licenses. And just on that, to learn more, if you're on the community side, that's your kind of pathway linked with the building blocks. So if you're senior community, performance-based community, then you should be doing your senior